2024 was the year where the real world and the internet finally merged in a head-on collision between incoming traffic. It was the year of brain rot, missed shots, and failed plots. Sometimes it looked like we were rocketing into the future. Other times it looked like we'd been launched back to the Crusades. It was the year of too many elections as the people clambered for change, tyrants were hung out to dry, and incumbents clung on by their fingertips. Culture shifted as the internet curb-stomped the pre-digital world into a bloody pulp of entrails and scarlet cables. It was prime time for war crimes, brain worms, gluttony, and goonery. Artificial intelligence vomited from our screens and onto our streets. Billion-dollar media conglomerates were eclipsed by morons mouthing off into road mics. It was the annum for assassinations. Failed, successful, and questionable. Musicians were exposed as deviants, Hollywood celebrities wasted away, and viral stars became household names. Facts were overruled by authenticity. Memes made money, Boeing got bumpy, and the Middle East got spicy. The horror was too much for some, while others indulged in ironic detachment, dancing to the beat of their own apathy. For me, this year provoked a lot of inner turmoil. As the old world burned, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to run away or roast marshmallows. Tragedy and comedy mashed together so thoroughly that they produced an incestuous dumpster demon baby, and I didn't know if I wanted to adopt it or conduct a post-birth abortion. But for now, we turn 360 back to January, because that's where the year started too. January turned out to be a month of near misses, close call calamities, and almost events, confirming the internet's mantra that nothing ever happens. But the opening minutes of the month did give us a few clues about what was coming next. In Paris, revelers rang in the new year, preferring to experience it through the medium of their phone screen. This moment filled me with enough anti-tech rage that I swapped in my smartphone for a low-tech alternative. Trust me, pages are going to blow up in a big way this year. Meanwhile, at a house party in Birmingham, Alabama, this guy spoke for all of us, trapped by the unceasing march of time, but also by the confines of this decorative urn.
I'm doing everything I fucking can!
On the 2nd of January, South Korean leader of the opposition, Lee Jae-myung, was subject to an attempted assassination, narrowly surviving a knife to the neck. An incident that took on grander what-if significance when Lee had a bigger brush with almost history at the end of the year, but calm down, we've got another 11 months to go. In another nearly terrible time, an Alaska Airlines plane got one wall panel lighter when part of its fuselage came loose during a flight. No one was killed, but many precious possessions were lost, as one passenger reported his phone, socks, and shoes were sucked off during the unscheduled skydive. The incident shone a light on the shortcomings of Boeing airplane construction, something that would continue to crash the public consciousness. In other nearly news, police in the Papua New Guinea capital of Port Moresby staged a protest over a sudden 50% cut to their wages. Citizens from the city and the surrounding countryside reacted by going fucking mental, torching the town and looting everything that wasn't nailed down. Prime Minister James Marape declared a state of emergency and reversed the public sector pay cut, blaming it on a computer glitch. My pager would never do anything like that. Mwah. At points, it did look like something was happening, but things quieted down after these non-events of historical insignificance ceased to stop not happening. Nothing continued to happen in the year's first election, as Taiwan went to the polls and voted the incumbent party back in for a third consecutive term. Lai Ching-te was elected president, beating West Taiwan's preferred candidate. Lai's party champions Taiwan's separate identity and rejects China's territorial claims. In response, China said it would not give up on achieving reunification, continuing their consecutive 74th year of promising to invade Taiwan and then never getting round to it. Then, on January 9th, nothing happened again in Ecuador as heavily armed gangsters stormed a major television studio. It was one of a series of coordinated attacks across the country as organized crime groups declared war on the country's president. Elsewhere, hostages were taken in hospitals and prisons in scenes that did look suspiciously like something was happening. But looks can be deceiving as government forces regain control of state institutions after declaring an internal state of war. That, actually does seem to be ongoing since last I checked. Ecuador was plagued by violence and several high-profile assassinations throughout the year. As it turns out, stuff kind of does happen, just not always in the places that internet apathy merchants are paying attention to. Well, with all that unimportant shit out of the way, January, really, to me, was a tale of two holes. In Chicago, one tiny hole gained worldwide attention when it went viral on Twitter.
But what I found was very much more like Looney Tunes, I guess. Just a full rat splat mark in the wet pavement. I just bust out laughing when I saw it.
Having already existed for at least a decade, the internet decided 2024 was the year of the rat hole. Pilgrims flocked to Chicago's mystery vermin vent, wondering who was this mysterious rat? Where is he now? What are we all doing here, and don't any of us have any jobs? Well, apparently not, as Chicago's altar to the absent rodent was surrounded with gift-giving mental patients, bringing booze, rubber ducks, booze, and zins. And apparently with nothing better to do, the local Chamber of Commerce started accepting submissions for official names, with favourites including Lil Stucky, the Roscoe Rodent, and the winner, Splattertooey. But it was another hole in Crown Heights, New York, that really set the internet on fire that month. In a scene lifted directly from Hitler's own meth-addled brain right before he used it to paint the walls of his bunker the colour of cranberries, a group of yeshiva students were filmed treating the New York subway system like a clown car. The moment mystified internet onlookers who wanted to know what the fuck was going on. The answer was somehow more batshit insane than the clip itself. It turns out the synagogue adjacent to the hole had been hollowed out illegally, the result of a 30-year internal dispute between the umbrella organization that owned the synagogue and the smaller, crazier offshoot organization that ran it day to day. These guys basically believed that their dead rabbi, this guy, was actually the son of God, and for reasons, he wanted to have the synagogue expanded, hence the creepy underground tunnel complete with staunch tunnel-dwelling defenders. When the umbrella organization hired construction workers to replace the tunnel's creepy vibes with concrete, all hell broke loose. When this video was recorded, the police had already arrived, forcing the men to exit at street level in a scene that would have been deleted from Nazi propaganda films due to being a little on the nose. February offered us some bold new visions for the future, but they were the kind of visions you might experience after thumbing your limp dick into a Tesla supercharge port. In San Francisco, the future wasn't for everyone, as Chinatown celebrated the Lunar New Year by setting fire to a Waymo autonomous car. In Las Vegas, a self-described pro-life Spider-Man crawled to the top of the Las Vegas sphere of selling shit, claiming he was performing the climb in order to raise money to prevent a homeless woman from getting an abortion. Meanwhile, in LA, another sky-high eye offender went viral as the abandoned Oceanside Plaza was transformed into the world's tallest bathroom wall. Construction was halted on the project when developers ran out of money, so local graffiti artists transformed the unfinished waste of vertical space into a concrete middle finger to corporate crap. On February 2nd, the Apple Vision Pro went on sale. A mixed reality operating system, or a face prison for bored, cash-rich dads that want to covertly watch Lily Phillips videos at family gatherings. For the next week, the $3,000 device would appear in the wild, on the subway, in coffee shops and on the streets of London. And then seemingly it vanished from existence entirely. Either people realised that they look like pathetic corporate drones incapable of human interaction, or every single person who was Vision Proing al fresco simply walked straight into an open sewer. And no one has reported them missing because no one noticed their absence or loved them in the first place. Election Watch! In El Salvador, the internet's favourite authoritarian and D-tier Far Cry villain won his second election with an historic margin.
está violando derechos humanos. ¿Los derechos humanos de quién? ¿De la gente honrada? No. Tal vez pusimos prioridad en los derechos de la gente honrada sobre los derechos de los delincuentes.
Nayib Bukele claimed to have crushed the opposition, and he also crushed it with his outfit choice, choosing a casual off-white long-sleeve tee to contrast the opulence of his presidential balcony. Bukele is the textbook example of what the global voting public has shown all-out enthusiasm for this year. The tech-fueled, do shit, break shit, rule book shredding strongman silly boy.
I'm not joking. I paid £40 a ticket for this.
On the 24th of February, an unlicensed Willy Wonka rip-off event in an industrial park on the outskirts of Glasgow was so shitty that someone called the police. It was closed just a few hours after opening, but footage of the event went so viral that those hours were stretched into an infinity of social media special interest. The original website that enticed parents was a nauseating gargle of AI-generated imagery and obvious spelling mistakes, enchanting people with the possibility of carchety tons, cat-cacketing, and a paradise of sweet teats. On arrival, the AI-fueled fuckery didn't end.
Asthma soup, flavor tea, full of scary face. Oh my God. Scare the great unknown.
The basically empty warehouse was noticeably devoid of chocolatey teats or of anything that might entertain a child. But a handful of recently hired and obviously embarrassed actors attempted to engage them by riffing on an AI-generated script that they'd been given mere days before. This off-brand Oompa Loompa became a focal point for internet onlookers, who memed her into oblivion. But credit where credit is due, it did deliver on the original Willy Wonka factory's capacity to totally terrify the children who visited.
What is that? It's the end.
Blame ultimately fell to the Willy Wanker who organised the event, Billy Cool, a serial entrepreneur with an established history of using AI-generated content to inflate his fake credentials, publishing 17 AI-generated books the previous summer in an effort to pitch himself as an established author. The story of Billy and his crappy chocolate factory became a cultural flashpoint for generative AI. Its reputation stalled as the Silicon Valley hype train ran out of steam, leaving grifters to begin looting it for parts in March. March was a month for ego, error, and overconfidence as people faked it, made it, and fucked it. Google's AI division came under scrutiny for its many, many failures, when this guy's question about Gemini made them look like a bunch of boobs. Javier Milei fired his Secretary of Labour on live TV in a bid to blow back backdraft from his own salary increase. And Kamala Harris clapped along to a bunch of protesters protesting her before realising what was going on.
We're Costco guys. Of course we go shopping while eating a chicken bake.
We're Costco guys. Of course we had to try the new double chunk chocolate cookie.
On March 1st, we were all introduced to the Costco guys. And if you're anything like me, they were introduced to you in the same way that a camera is introduced to you during a colonoscopy. The father-son catchphrase comedy duo of AJ and Big Justice would inexplicably become the viral phenomenon of 2024. Their only competition really being the spitting suck job cowgirl, the slimy sentient fleshlight, and John Wilkes botched it over here. Okay, there was another pretty significant viral star of this year, but you're going to have to wait till December before we can talk about him. Despite looking like a hernia that someone has drawn eyebrows on, people just couldn't get enough of AJ and his son Eric, aka Big Justice. I'm not going to make fun of Eric's appearance, he is a child, but rest assured I hate him too. But is my hatred of these two in any way justified? Probably not. After all, I am a hater by trade, but I do find the unadulterated adulation that these two have received kind of baffling. They first burrowed into our mutual mind vault by jumping on the "oh so relatable, we're one thing so of course we do this other thing" trend on TikTok. An incredibly repetitive and lazy trend that quickly ran out its welcome, unlike the Costco guys themselves, of course. who continued to court favor by rating Costco items on their iconic boom or doom meter very, very loudly.
Boom or doom?
A chicken bake?
Or a double chunk chocolate cookie?
I'm gonna have to give the chicken bake the boom and the double chunk chocolate a doom. You heard it from the Rizzler!
They would somehow spin this bit into a whole family-sized extended universe of music, merch, and wrestling appearances.
Just give me my money!
The Costco guys are patience zero for a 2024 phenomenon that I call wholesome grifting, a brain rot adjacent practice of capitalizing on your immediate underdog status as a viral sensation and riding it all the way to the bank. There is sort of a big justice in being able to capitalize on that, you know? Like, it costs a lot to be immediately recognizable, and there kind of should be some kind of monetary reward for that. I think that's what this wholesome grifting thing is all about. Internet audiences understand that, and they want you to succeed, and yeah, we'll see a lot of people attempt to capitalize on that this year. We live in a time of unlimited information, where nothing goes unnoticed, where an absence of immediate answers gets filled by speculation and comment section conspiracies. For more on that, we turn to our resident bad stuff happening to boats correspondent, internet historian.
On March 26th, the Dali cargo ship was leaving the port of Baltimore in the early hours of the morning. Its cargo, 5,000 shipping containers. Then the lights went out. Total power failure. Oh no! But then the lights came back on. Whew. But then black smoke starts fuming from the ship's funnel. Oh. And then the lights went out again. At this point, the ship is moving at a blistering, face-shredding, eye mucus ejecting pace, 9 miles per hour. It is on a direct collision course with the bottom bits of the Francis Scott Bridge. The crew quickly tells port officials that something has gone wrong, and they request a tugboat. They also give them time to stop traffic from driving onto the bridge. But they are unable to change course. The ship plows into one of the bridge's pylons, causing it to snap like an uncooked piece of spaghetti when you bend it at both ends, you know.
Yo! What the No shot! No shot!
Now, any sensible person would see this as nothing more than a tragic accident. An accident that might require a little more investigation for negligence or neglect. But if you zoom the footage in really, really close until it gets all pixelated and you can't really see anything, then maybe you saw what I did too. Foul play. Within a few hours of it all happening, the Tate estate put out a word claiming it was a cyber attack and that the ship was deliberately steered towards the bridge. General Michael Flynn also logged on to suggest that there were sinister forces at work. So very quickly, the general sentiment was that everybody agreed this is a black swan event, everybody. A phrase coined and popularized by this book, by the way, which is not about accidental bridge collapses or black swans, as it turns out. Oh, I found this other book, which was very nice. It's about this duckling, and he wasn't liked by everybody, but he grew up and everything was great at the end. Anyway, before we know what happens, first we're looking around for people to blame. So Utah State Rep Phil Lyman suggests, have you noticed we appointed this black lady to the position of power at the Baltimore port? Maybe this is the real problem. But these knee-jerk conspiracy assessments were not confined to social media. For example, this Fox News anchor who suggested it was the wide-open border to the south of the country that caused the ship to crash.
The ship involved in the collapse of the bridge is 948 feet long, called the Dali, a Singaporean flagged container. But of course, you've been talking a lot about the potential for wrongdoing or potential for foul play given the wide open border.
Now here's the great thing about the year 2024. You can still go on television and tell everyone you're not an expert. And that kind of gives you carte blanche to just say whatever.
You know, I'm no expert on what's going on the seas, but all I would say is that if you talk to employers in America, they'll tell you that filling slots with employees who aren't drug-addled is a very huge problem. So I'm making no specific charges here because we don't know.
Right.
It actually takes a few months to investigate something before you can really provide any answers about what happened, especially when it's so technical and complex. And even at the time of recording, we don't really have a complete picture of what happened. The National Transportation Safety Board released a 41-page report on the crash in September, and that featured new details about the technical failures that led to the crash. But these are not totally conclusive either, and nor did anyone pay attention when this report was released in September. By then, the internet had moved on. They were totally fixated on this slimy little handbag in waiting, who everyone had decided, inexplicably, was actually the cutest thing ever. Moo Deng.
In another thing that happened, the de-skinned head of Thomas Aquinas was photographed riding shotgun en route to the Fossa Nova Abbey in Italy. Personally, this image sparked a new interest for me in Catholicism, which I didn't realise was so fucking metal. Lucky for me, in the same month, Donald Trump had resorted to selling some patriotic Bibles to pay off his mounting legal fees.
And I think you all should get a copy of God Bless the USA Bible now and help spread our Christian values with others. There you have it.
So in preparation for Easter, I decided to cynically convert to hardcore evangelical Christianity so I too could sell shit by suggesting the world was coming to an end. In April, the internet burned with symbolic imagery suggesting that our Lord and Saviour's return was imminent, but everyone reacted with an indifferent flick of their thumb. In London, horses painted red charged unrestrained through the streets in a low-budget biblical omen so hackneyed that we barely noticed. In Copenhagen, the old world burned and everyone yawned. Haven't we seen this one already in Paris a few years back? Whichever malevolent spirit is in charge of setting up these foreboding omens really needs to get some new material. In Taiwan, the earth moved beneath us as God warned us of our transgressions. But no one paid attention because we were all watching this guy eat an unholy amount of cheese balls. In New York, hundreds gathered to watch as this guy stuffed cheese balls into his head hole. At one point, it looked like he was going to spew those balls back up onto the pavement, but the crowd spurred him on, giving him enough psychic power to continue his grim task. Hallelujah, he finished the jar to the crowd's delight. Given it was a public park anywhere in America, people screaming about the apocalypse were probably being ignored somewhere just off camera. In fact, they were only a few blocks away, as protesters at Columbia University were indeed camping out to protest a genocide that was going on in the Holy Land. Pro-Palestine protests swept across America's college campuses, starting in Columbia. Similar campouts followed at Cal Poly, Harvard, and UT Austin, provoking a typically Texan response from the state's public safety officers. Although one student seemed totally unconcerned, choosing to selfishly spend his time at college studying instead. I too was indifferent. Having conveniently converted to American-style evangelical Christianity for the month of April, I saw no problem with Israel's ongoing massacre. In fact, any violence in the Middle East gets me fucking jacked because it only confirms my belief that the Left Behind-style apocalypse is just around the corner. I'm much more worried about who's allowed in public bathrooms that I don't use and what children are watching on the internet. In Russia, Skibidi Toilet made an unexpectedly large splash, reaching the arseholes in local Russian government. The Legislative Assembly watched the video with serious concern after police investigated whether the toilet man was indoctrinating their children. Meanwhile, Skibidi Toilet lookalike Bashar al-Assad wasn't in the news at all in April, despite the release of a detailed report showing mass death and torture going on under his regime.
I'm taking the plunge. I'm getting baptized.
In the same month, Russell Brand announced his own conversion to Christianity, using the religion and its many gullible cohorts to cushion his fall from grace after a recent sex scandal. Lucky for him, Jesus forgives everyone, even aging grifters running on the fumes of being funny sometime in 2009. And in Nigeria, over 100 inmates blessed the rains down in Africa when a downpour wrecked their prison's perimeter wall, releasing them early. It's a shame the weather in Dubai wasn't as kind. On the 15th of April, the United Arab Emirates experienced record drowning rainfall in the most Schadenfreude-inducing natural disaster of the year, proving that if God is mad at us, at least he has a sense of humour and a sense of proportion as he flooded the one city that really deserved it. As our modern Sodom, without any of the stuff that made Sodom fun to begin with, it was kind of gratifying to see the cracks in Dubai's gaudy, soulless architecture laid bare. The city's inadequate drainage system and extensive flat concrete surfaces kept water where it fell. Thousands of flights were cancelled, and those that did arrive were taxiing for hours in the flooded airport. It was literally the perfect storm, as it coincided with two major crypto conferences taking place in Dubai that week. Meaning that hundreds of flushed out crypto goons were there to document the kind of liquidity that hitherto they'd only had wet dreams about. Influencer Jordan Welsh recorded himself in a waterlogged Rolls Royce. This guy showed off his engineering skills, attempting to funnel the water leaking into his hotel room into the bathroom.
Welcome to Dubai.
You do have to give these guys some props though. Their undying techno-optimism does just seem to keep working out for them. People were filming this guy blow his Tesla through the floodwater, and they all thought he was fucked. But Mr. Spread proved them all wrong, posting the footage from inside his car as he came away mostly unwashed, forcing a three-word community note correction on the original video. In keeping with Dubai's general vibe, its richest inhabitants took absolutely no note of the horrible shit happening around them, and only saw it as an opportunity to flex on everyone. When God gives you floods, crack out the jet skis. Oh, what judgment God hath rendered upon this city of sin. May was a month for childish misbehaviour, as people sought attention by throwing tantrums and flashing their bathroom bits. A portal opened between New York and Dublin, as an interactive installation created by a Lithuanian artist allowed people in both cities to offend one another without audio. In an attempt to secure the all-important 12-year-olds living in the late 1970s vote, Joe Biden wheeled out Mark Hamill for a special appearance at the White House.
That's pretty much it. I'm open to questions, although no Star Wars questions, please.
This would become a running theme for the Democrats this year, securing the endorsement of aging and out-of-touch celebrities.
Well, you know, I called him Mr. President. He said, "You can call me Joe." And I said, "Can I call you Joe-B-Wan Kenobi?"
Meanwhile, Chapel Roan rejected an invitation to perform at the White House for Pride Month, telling the White House to HOTTO, go fuck yourself, citing the administration's continued support for Israel as her reason for declining the event. A Taiwanese lawmaker played a game of keep away with a piece of legislation before President-elect Lai Ching-do was set to take office. What followed was a series of playground scuffles, including shoving, tackling, and shoulder barging.
Damn! That's loud.
And that boat finally was dislodged from that bridge after 2 months of tugging. I haven't seen something move this slowly in the port of Baltimore since season 2 of The Wire. I would just like to offer an immediate apology for that joke about The Wire. Season 2 of The Wire, while slower in pace, is rich in thematic clarity about the death of the American dream. I would never joke about something So serious, also current. But May was also a month for embarrassing and ineffective protests that went totally nowhere and undercut their own cause. Hundreds of climate protesters clashed with police in Germany as they stormed the Tesla Gigafactory. The Vulcan activist group claimed responsibility, suggesting that the electric car company consumed natural resources and labor. You know, like everything. Unlike the gas-guzzling, air-polluting cars that have been the backbone of the German manufacturing economy for the last 50 years, but you know, they're not owned by Elon Musk, so they're not part of the global culture war. Pro-Palestinian protests reached fever pitch on the campus of UCLA.
Give me.
Pro-genocide protesters, I mean pro-Israel protesters, squared off against pro-terrorist, I mean pro-Palestinian forces on the college green. And if you didn't like that joke, the comment section is right there. The two groups fought for control over the tiny patch of land, making it entirely uninhabitable for all the innocent people that just wanted to go about living their lives in peace. Comment section down there. Later in the month, this image went insanely viral on Instagram in a mass act of repost activism reminiscent of 2020's Blackout Tuesday. This one goes out to George Floyd. The image was shared more than 47 million times, making it one of the most shared images in the platform's history. Generated by AI, it depicted poorly rendered tents arranged in perfect symmetry, and Gaza's snowy mountains in the background, made famous by the open-air prison's iconic alpine ski season. The computer-cooked image proved far more viral than the real photos coming out of Rafah, where an Israeli airstrike had killed dozens of civilians, raising questions about the role of AI-generated images in real events, but also about how effective they can really be in hijacking our attention.
Red Crescent search and rescue teams have arrived at the crash site of the helicopter carrying the president and his foreign minister. They say there is no sign of life.
In very serious news, on the 19th, a helicopter carrying the president of Iran crashed in the mountains of Azerbaijan, with Iran's almost official news agency, Mehr News, describing him as having been martyred in the crash. Martyred? Is that the right word? I didn't realise that Iran was in a holy war with the concept of gravity. But before the Ayatollah could issue a fatwa against Isaac Newton, Russian TV reported on rumours of another suspect.
Группа «Хамас», высказывающаяся в Телеграме, утверждает, что пилот вертолета был агентом Моссада. Он даже называет имя «Helicopter».
That's right. Veteran Putin-falator Vladimir Solovyov reported on internet rumours that a Mossad agent named Helicopter may have been involved in the crash, clearly unaware of the pun or that the name originated from a joke posted on Hebrew social media. A huge percentage of the discussion around the crash in its initial hours centred on the possibility of foul play or Israeli involvement, with thousands of accounts latching on to the Helicopter name without investigating it further. In subsequent reports, Ellie's older brother, Roffel, was cited as a co-conspirator. In other news, Nayib Bukele decided to capitalize on his popularity as president of El Salvador by launching his own high-end coffee brand, while Bible salesman / presidential candidate Donald Trump was found guilty in a Manhattan court on all 34 counts of conspiracy and fraud. And yet, this wasn't even the worst look for someone campaigning for high office that week.
Can restore pride and confidence in our country, and with a clear plan and bold action, will deliver a secure future for you, your family, and our United Kingdom.
On the 22nd of May, things could only get wetter in the UK when unpopular Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced a surprise general election sans umbrella, starting the race by blowing his brains out with the starter pistol. From his first puddle-pounding step, Rishi's campaign was soaked to the bone, as each subsequent appearance was drowned out by laughter.
Prime Minister, we are just yards away from where the Titanic was built and designed. Are you captaining a sinking ship going into this election?
But to be honest, I was barely paying attention because the first coup of the year was underway in the DRC. That's right, the Democratic Republic of Congo, winner of the Worst Place to Live in the World award for the last 10 years running. So who on earth would want to run things over there? Turns out this guy, Christian Malanga, a former used car salesman from Utah, who moved back to his home country of the DRC to join the military. But after plotting a coup in 2010, he was forced to leave. And while in exile, he cooked up a whole new country called New Zaire. But the dream of New Zaire would be short-lived, as Christian's 2024 coup attempt would last all of 3 hours. It was probably the most inept attempt of the year, and it has some stiff competition in the coming months. Christian and about 20 of his best bros started their day by approaching the residence of the former Deputy Prime Minister, reportedly looking for the current Prime Minister, who they could not find. Not a great start. Failing that, they made a straight line for the presidential palace, which they immediately entered, finding it empty of staff and presidents.
Zaire oye! Zaire oye!
With nothing else to do, Christian went live on Facebook to announce the coup. Wearing the classic coup uniform, he declared the age of New Zaire had begun.
Ingeta! Zaire Ingeta! Ingeta! Brothers and sisters, stand up where we are! Zaire oye!
The live broadcast earned Christian a fistful of emojis and a few bullets in his body, as he and several of his co-coups were shot dead by the Presidential Guard 10 minutes later. The rest of the coup crew were captured and arrested, including 3 American nationals, which is where the story raises some additional eyebrows. Cannabis entrepreneur Benjamin Zalman Poulon was apparently among the coup keen when the rebellion went up in smoke. A man with a strange past, having cut a deal with the FBI in 2014 to escape a lengthy prison sentence. The other 2 were Christian's son, 21-year-old Marcel Malanga, and his Utah school friend Tyler Thompson. Their level of involvement in the rebellion remains unclear, and will likely never be fully understood, as they are all now facing the death penalty as punishment. The story barely made a dent in the international news cycle, which is sadly typical of many of the stories coming out of the DRC. As YouTube's resident coup expert, I would give this one a generous 2 out of 10. A truly dire attempt. Poorly planned, poorly executed, amateurish, frankly. But they did manage to get into the palace, which is better than I can say for another coup that happened in the month of June. June was a month for collabs and comebacks, as people joined forces or desperately forced their way back into relevance. Best friends forever, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un went on a road trip that no one would ever forget. The internet couldn't get enough of these partners in war crime, using AI to fill out their trip's itinerary for extra computer-imagined stops.
I'm sorry, don't leave me.
But what they didn't fake was this rom-com ending, as Kimmy and Vlad couldn't take their eyes off one another at the airport. Not to be upstage, Bukali and Milei conducted their own South American meet-cute. With Bukali mogging the fuck out of Milei during their stand-up straight contest, and with his outfit, this time dressing as the Mecha God Cube for reasons that were obvious only to him. Still, something is working for him, as the president's war on drugs and gangs has been incredibly popular. When authorities burned 2.7 tons of cocaine in this public display, onlookers downwind described it as fucking sick, mate, and asked for feedback on their screenplays.
Well, we're coming back with breaking news because the live stream has finally started. You can see that.
Lightning struck twice when the GameStop stock surge returned for seconds, thanks in large part to the stock-pumping shenanigans of Roaring Kitty, who came back to social media after a 3-year absence with this meme. Thanks to this single post, shares shot up by over 70% in early trading sessions, which is when I sold the bullshit bag that I've been holding since 2021, allowing me to buy these neat sunglasses. Really. But Roaring Kitty's first live stream since disappearing revealed that the intervening years hadn't been kind to old Keith Gill. Turns out this was the man in finance that all those TikTok girlies were looking for earlier in the year, revealing that sometimes it's better not to revisit the glories of the past. Advice that Israel ignored when they decided to go medieval on Hezbollah's arse on the border with Lebanon, using a trebuchet to clear thorny vegetation on the other side of the border, proving that some relics of a bygone era can still be useful. We didn't realize it then, but on June 28th, Joe Biden gave his last performance in a presidential debate.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
The president spent his time trailing off with barely audible answers, clearly cranky that the debate was occurring at his usual nap time. The debate followed multiple appearances where Biden had resembled a Roomba running out of batteries. While this debate was a disastrous performance for both candidates, here Donald Trump started to look like the frontrunner in the hotly contested race. But the biggest comeback of June was surely fascism in Europe, as right-wing parties goose-stepped all over the competition during the European parliamentary elections. France, Germany, and Italy all saw right-wing parties make enormous gains, riding continent-wide anger over years of badly managed immigration. Emmanuel Macron reacted to his party's loss by announcing a snap national election, and Europe reacted with a collective, "Fuck, another one? Really? Can't someone just declare themselves king already? What happened to the good old days? What happened to Charlemagne? Charlemagne! Charlemagne! We did it! Oh yeah, the UK election also did happen in June, but it was basically already decided the moment it was announced. The result surprised literally no one, except for this one woman at Sky News, apparently.
Oh, oh my God.
Yes, these shrieks of centrist delight were made for the victory of Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Captain Boring led Labour back into government after a 14-year absence. He celebrated by raising his cheeks up and down in one of his twice-annual smiles. Oh, my mistake, that's actually human skin cells stretched out in a collagen scaffold. Some bioengineers at Harvard put this together in June in ongoing efforts to make robots look more human. But they shouldn't have bothered, as the Labour Party have already perfected it. According to himself, Keir Starmer doesn't have a favourite film or book, he doesn't dream, and actively supports Arsenal. If he were an activity, he'd be reading the terms and conditions. If he were a meal, he'd be rice. You get the idea. At least in Bolivia, politics got a bit more dynamic as the coup capital of the world did what they do worst. Yeah, I know, there's a lot of elections and coups in this section, but, you know, these are the events that happened. I have no control over them, and to be honest, if I did, there would probably be more coups, so yeah. After weeks of political and economic unease, Bolivian army units led by General Juan José Zúñiga blocked the streets on June 26th. Days before, the general had threatened to arrest former President Evo Morales if Morales announced he was going to run in the upcoming presidential election, leading to the general's dismissal by the current president, Luis Arce. Yeah. The coup was basically the general's elaborate tantrum in response to his embarrassing removal. A tantrum that involved storming the capital and smashing down the door of the presidential palace with his armoured vehicle. Despite the show of force, the general lacked meaningful military or political support.
Declaramos la huelga general indefinida.
Workers' unions quickly mobilized against the coup, and protesters started to gather, giving El Presidente the confidence to meet his goons at the door, explaining calmly that they have fucked up and that they should probably go home.
¡Basta solo, presidente!
Policía militar.
You could tell the general had lost confidence in his own coup when he refused to exit his armoured vehicle, attempting to take control of the country like he was ordering at a drive-thru. Yeah, I'll take 1 Bolivia with extra salt flats, hold the election, plus fries and a cherry coke. Less than an hour later, his troops withdrew, and in another victory for democracy, General Zuniga was arrested on live TV.
Del regimiento de Achacacho. ¿Ya? Achacacho. Entonces, Tomás. No. Así, Tomás.
Usted está detenido. Usted está detenido, mi general.
I'd give this coup a 2.5 out of 10. Pretty piss poor. Clearly a spur of the moment thing, with no attempt to capture the media or secure support in the military more widely. Shite, basically. To any coup-keen colonels out there, watch out. Do better. As a long-time beard owner, keeping it tidy is an ongoing fight to prevent people from thinking I'm homeless and or the Unabomber. But my battle against an unruly beard and industrial society has gotten a lot easier with Henson shaving. Henson wants to change shaving for the better, and it really needs to change. Over 2 billion of these disposable plastic razors enter the landfill every year, and that's just in the States. Your standard multi-razor brands aren't designed for accuracy, and they are a total waste of your income, as they are designed to break and fail. And if you're a beard shaver like me, they end up filling up with hair after just one use. The Henson razor is built different. It's built to last, and it's built to protect your skin. You can get a smooth shave from any blade that's sufficiently sharp, which you can buy for pennies when they aren't attached to those flimsy disposable plastic handles. Ever since I've been using Henson's razor, the borders of my beard have been free from those annoying red bumps that make it look like you're about to break out in some rare tropical disease. They have partnered with a medical imaging startup to show their razor delivers a significantly lower erythemic response than leading drugstore multi-razor brands. The Henson razor is a product you can rely on for years, and there'll be no more cheap pieces of hair-clogged crap to ugly up your bathroom. It's made of rust-proof aluminium, and there isn't even a micro-speck of plastic in their packaging. If you buy one with my link, you'll also get 100 free blades. That's 2 or 3 years worth of free shaving. So just visit hensonshaving.com/ordinarythings or use the code ordinarythings at checkout. And so, we reach the midpoint of the year, and of brat summer. And pop culture would never be the same again. All eyes were on America in July, but Americans didn't notice because they just always assume that's the case. Mark Zuckerberg's public image makeover continues to flourish. Who knew all it took to get people to love you was to completely change everything about you?
We see something that said, take a look at what happened.
On the 13th, Donald Trump was shot in the ear just as he was starting his speech at a rally in Pennsylvania, resulting in a minor wound and the photograph that will be on the front cover of American history books about this era for as long as books exist. Subsequently, in a message of support, Elon would come out as a fully fledged Trump simp, heralding a new and irritating era for the billionaire.
It's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time.
Oh, you gotta give him that huck too and spit on that thing, you get me?
Footage from a street interview conducted in June went super viral as Haley Welsh discussed proper etiquette when it came to slurping penis, and in doing so degraded the English language further into a mix of guttural grunts and saliva spraying incoherence.
We bring the boom! That's what we do! We bring the boom!
Not to be outdone, the Costco guys released their debut single with We Bring the Boom, based on their boom/doom meter that they use to rate Costco products. Have I already told you guys about that? Sorry, this year is just becoming a bit of a blur. Yes, the release of this song crystallized culture in a profound and irreversible way. Now everything, every person, every molecule can be judged on a new scale. The distinctions between the old binaries now seem old, outdated, futile, good versus evil, left versus right, smart versus stupid. These are nothing but archaic forms of nuance, pointless in the face of the universality of the boom and doom. Joe Biden continued his promise to bring the boom to Ukraine when he introduced their president in a gaffe to end all gaffes.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Yeah, this was probably it. This was the moment that brought the doom to President Biden's campaign. A few weeks later, he was ousted as the Democratic Party's candidate for president. Kamala Harris ascended quickly and with basically no opposition to become Joe Biden's replacement. Establishment politicians and pop culture joined forces to endorse her, raising $81 million in just one day. But the most consequential endorsement came in the form of a single tweet. British pop star Charlie XCX tweeted Kamala is brat, a meaningless in-joke that had no real bearing on the candidate's character or policies. It was an aesthetic. But as the Democratic Party has no ideas of their own and a completely outdated idea of how internet culture works, they ran with it. Haley Welsh and the Costco guys have transformed their lives by clinging on to their viral moment and sucking every drop of potential from the wet bath mat of public attention. Podcasts, music, merchandise, shitcoins. This is self-conscious, wholesome grifting in the age of brain rot. So what is brain rot, really? Well, I see it as the product of the endless scroll, a mindless meme that demands users continuously add on to a single theme until it has lost all of its original charm and intent, but keeps our attention through familiarity, right? All that remains is the recycled remnants of the idea, an in-joke that can only be understood by the scrollers who are, consenting to their own lobotomy with every dopamine-delivering thumb twitch. But this kind of brain rot is powerful. It is meta-viral, not just dependent on a single original video being spread far and wide and then, dying once it's been seen by everyone. It's an unholy meshing of meme and viral moment. The Costco guys and Spit on Dick Girl capitalized on their one viral clip in a way that was once unthinkable. They rode the wave until it became a social contagion, like a virus adapting to the body's defense mechanisms. The meme is changed just enough to bypass our boredom until it has become a whole new thing, but with a bit of familiarity for those who stuck with it, and pages of inbuilt lore for newcomers to learn from. Brain rot is the new normal on the internet because it's easy to make and consume, but that doesn't mean we can't see through it.
Charlie XCX has a huge young following. She's very much immersed in internet culture. And what the Biden campaign couldn't do and was struggling with doing was getting Gen Z support. Well, now Kamala Harris has complete Gen Z attention, and she has really embraced this.
The forced meme of Kamala is brat wasn't brain rot at all. It was worse. It was an outdated idea of what the internet is. In the 2000s, the internet was nerd culture, right? In the 2010s, it was youth culture. And today, the internet simply is culture. Whoever was running Kamala's digital strategy hadn't got the memo. They were running a 2010s campaign in 2024. Today, one 3-hour podcast appearance is worth 100 appearances on broadcast television. And they have to be unedited and unscripted. Donald Trump's campaign demonstrated a far greater understanding of this in the next month, having the candidate appear alongside Aiden Ross. Internet audiences have much lower expectations these days for flashy visuals or production design, but have much higher standards when it comes to authenticity. They want what's reals. Kamala is brat was dead on arrival. I give it a doom! Oh yeah, and on the 19th, about 8.5 million Windows devices were bricked with the blue screen of death, grounding flights, shutting banks, and losing companies millions in revenue. Crazy, am I right? And there was some riots in the UK or something. Moving on. August was a month for outrage, as people got goddamn pissed about trivial bullshit that I can barely pretend that I care about. Jimmy Beast came under fire for a litany of clickbait almost crimes that were as numerous as they were inconsequential. The controversy created a whole cottage industry of YouTubers, large and small, collecting massive bags by dumping Jimmy's face in a thumbnail and regurgitating the info that was already out there. Personally, I couldn't care less, as I found the whole business as childish and irritating as, well, a Mr. Beast video. Twitter revealed exactly where the limits of free speech laid when the platform suspended the Barry Stanton account. This year, Twitter has been giving 4chan a run for its money with more conspiracy theories and Kremlin propaganda than you could cram under Tim Pool's beanie. But the anonymous Barry Stanton account proved that as bad as the Elon-owned platform could be, there was a limit on just being a constant barrage of anti-Indian racism and pro-Hitler posts. Yeah.
Nah, I said it's heavy. Niggas is lined up. No, this shit is elephant. No!
When a viral TikTok trend claimed that Chase Bank ATMs were plagued with a real-life free money glitch, many rushed to take advantage. Users who were dumb enough to believe in real-life video game logic were also stupid enough to record themselves doing it, depositing bogus checks into their own accounts and then making seemingly successful cash withdrawals. Apparently unaware that this was simply, let me check, check fraud.
Fuck, man. They really told me to tap in. Next day I was supposed to clear and look at my account, yo.
Oh yeah, and the Paris Olympics was on, and frankly I thought it slapped like a penis on a pole vaulter, providing a bevy of record-breaking performances, but also a whole bunch of pointless bullshit for people to get mad at. The opening ceremony in July was extremely controversial, but only if you're such an anti-woke pearl clutcher that you think a bearded woman and some blue body paint is some kind of capital cultural offence. Early in the month, the streets of Dakar were packed with student protesters, demanding an end to the rule of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Defying curfew days later, crowds broke through the gates of the PM's residence and made camp inside Parliament. All enabled by an eventually indifferent military that seemed uninterested in defending the long-serving PM's rule. It was enough to conclude her 15 years in power, as statues of her father were torn down in the capital. But I bet you didn't hear about that, because the internet was positively raging at the antics of a bad Australian breakdancer instead. Yes, this was the Ray Gun controversy, centering on Rachel Gunn, aka Ray Gunn, aka Dr. Gunn, because she had a PhD in breakdancing. Many considered Rachel's performance at the first, and probably last, breaking contest in Olympic history to be an embarrassing display, possibly unaware that breakdancing just looks like that. But greater scrutiny fell on Dr. Gunn's performance when a viral petition accused her of manipulating the Australian selection process and allowing her husband to coach the national team. These allegations were completely false, but they helped give people a moral justification for shitting on the middle-aged woman who didn't dance good. In September, we crossed into opposite land. Up was down, carrots was peas, Christmas was in October, and Ricardo Avocado was skinny. In a bizarre bid to stave off post-election strife, President Maduro of Venezuela made a decree to move Christmas forward to October 1st in one of his regular TV appearances.
I am always 2 steps ahead.
Famously fat face stuffer Ricardo Avocado revealed that he'd suddenly lost an insane amount of weight, with what seemed like impossible speed. He eventually revealed that the last 2 years of his barely disguised feeder fetish content had been pre-recorded. For those missing the old Ricardo, another slimy, overeating ingrate captured the internet's eyeballs in September. That's right, Mudeng! A pygmy hippo living in a Thailand zoo captured the hearts of gawking simpletons everywhere who clap like seals whenever something is smaller than it should be. The zoo said visitor numbers had doubled since her birth in July, inspiring other zoos to spin their captive attractions into social media stars. The Melbourne Aquarium pulled a reverse Mudeng by featuring Pesto, a penguin pup that was surprisingly large. And at the UN, the president of Haiti was also surprised by the hitherto unexpected largeness of a thing. Before quenching his thirst, the president also expressed solidarity with Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, for reasons that will unfortunately be obvious to most of you. September was simply a remarkable month for bullshit, and the whole Springfield pet-eating hoax is the best possible case study I could ask for to demonstrate the politically motivated post-truth ecosystem that currently has the internet in a chokehold. It all started with a post in a local Facebook group called Springfield, Ohio Crime and Information, reporting the second-hand and anonymous story of a lost cat and its apparent butchering by Haitian immigrants. The post first left the local Facebook group by going viral among neo-Nazi groups, and then reaching global attention when it was picked up by high-follower rage-bait Twitter accounts like End Wokeness. It was here that it attracted the attention of Elon Musk and vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do.
You just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you created.
When the factual basis of these claims were questioned, a host of other politically motivated accounts backed up the pet-eating claims with circumstantial evidence and outright lies. This image went viral as apparent evidence of pet eating in Springfield, a photo that wasn't taken in Springfield, probably doesn't feature anyone from Haiti, and definitely doesn't include a pet. The man was just picking up 2 geese that had been hit by a car. But in this post-truth ecosystem, this wasn't about finding the facts, it was about keeping the wider conversation on immigration. Influencers like Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Charlie Kirk kept the fires burning long enough that all the rumors eventually reached the presidential debate stage.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Just when this talking point couldn't get more viral, the quote was co-opted by TikTok as the latest viral song.
They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, eat the cat, eat the cat. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, eat the cat, eat the cat.
Thanks to Facebook's rumor mill, Twitter's propaganda, and TikTok's ADHD, this quote is all anyone remembers from that second and final presidential debate. Today, this is the life cycle of truly viral information. It starts with an inflammatory rumor that provokes attention through debate, and then it becomes a soundbite, then it becomes a meme. This is brain rot politics, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. In the middle of the month, something completely insane happened, and it's going to be really hard to talk about without pissing off YouTube and a substantial portion of you guys watching. Okay, so as you may know, on September 17th, thousands of pagers exploded simultaneously in Beirut, killing Hezbollah members and civilians, as well as injuring thousands of both. What the fuck, said Lebanon. How the fuck, asked seasoned geopolitical commentators, and the fuck is a pager, asked anyone under the age of 25. Hezbollah had evidently abandoned phone and internet communications in an effort to evade Israeli eavesdropping. Footage of these grisly pant explosions were shared widely on Twitter minutes after they occurred. Onlookers were baffled, and meme creators demonstrated absolutely zero chill right out the gate. Many wondered if Israel had created some kind of sci-fi superweapon capable of exploding ordinary consumer electronics at will. The truth was only slightly more believable, as it was revealed a covert Israeli operation had used a combination of front companies to sell pagers to Hezbollah directly, having planted plastic explosives within the batteries of the devices after acquiring them from a Taiwanese manufacturer. the front company sales team continuously cut their price, promising that a bulk pager purchase wouldn't burn a hole in anyone's pocket. The terror group were eventually seduced by the bargain, and the devices were distributed across their network. A similar wave of walkie-talkie explosions occurred the next day, and a series of airstrikes followed over the next few weeks, wiping out the majority of Hezbollah's leadership, provoking large-scale celebrations in rebel-occupied Syria, which was very confusing to anyone who just started paying attention. The decimation of Hezbollah's leadership forced the organization to pull their troops out of Syria, weakening the Assad regime's security, as Hezbollah played a big part in securing the center of the country, separating the Assad regime in the south from rebel-held areas in the north. The Assad regime's Jenga tower was already looking shaky due to Russia's ebbing commitment to them, due to Russia being, preoccupied with their whole war in Ukraine. So preoccupied that they've had to reach out to their friends in North Korea to send some extra troops to fight in a war that has now gone inside their own border and sent their currency into freefall. And all this makes Iran look really bad, because Hezbollah is their boy, but also they're too weak internally to really back them up in any way that would materially matter. Which is why they fired a bunch of flashy but totally ineffective missiles at Israel in a performative act of war that was designed to inflict minimum damage. Because while they wanted to look like they were backing Hezbollah up, they didn't actually want a full-scale conflict with Israel. It was like the geopolitical equivalent of edging. And now Russia, they don't want a full-scale conflict either, as they would feel obligated to back up Iran, because they're bros too, and that's not even to mention Turkey's involvement in all this, as their allegiances are shifting, pragmatic, and a bit more Machiavellian. And this is just a tiny little look at this insane geopolitical rat king that is writhing and biting itself on the world stage at the moment. It's all a bit pre-World War III-y. But let's not get too bogged down in all that. Don't want to spoil anything for the 2025 recap. In October, we were treated with some subtle foreshadowing of things to come, as stuff was promised, predicted, and premeditated. But these expectations were often upended by disappointment. That's weird. I thought for sure that... In its latest ploy to seduce children, the Vatican unveiled their new Catholic cartoon mascot, Luce, an anime girl with blue hair and a yellow raincoat, because a choir boy with his frock pulled over his head would have been a bit on the nose.
Oh my god.
That's crazy.
Hundreds of people gathered in Dublin city centre to witness a Halloween parade that never was. The parade was mistakenly listed on a Pakistani website and then spread on TikTok, leading crowds to patiently wait on the roadside for nothing, as the internet once again made a successful assault on material reality. Throughout October, Sean Diddy Combs was hit with a series of individual civil suits accusing him of a lot of gross shit. Did he do it? Sure seems like Diddy did. In combination with his upcoming criminal case, it doesn't look good for the aging rapist.
Yes, that is crazy.
Hello, how are you? Good looking guy.
McDonald's customers in Pennsylvania were surprised to find Donald Trump at the drive-thru window. A pitch-perfect piece of political theatre that fully utilised the candidate's status as a supersized nugget of Americana. If the campaign had more time, they could have had him bottling Coca-Cola, deep-frying a monster truck, or unloading a Glock into the back of someone's head before trampling their body in a Black Friday sales stampede. Elections in Georgia, yep, another election. Things got testy when Russia's preferred party claimed victory amid allegations of fraud.
I'm here in Georgia, and today probably they have the biggest elections in the history of the country.
Luckily, Phidias, a member of European Parliament and a YouTuber responsible for this hate crime of a thumbnail, was there as an independent observer.
If the polling stations were doing a good job, even though I saw some incidents that I didn't like, overall the day went smoothly and we stayed until late night in the polling station to inspect the counting as well.
On the 28th, the same guy who ate a lot of cheese balls organised a Timothée Chalamet look-alike contest in the same park. 10,000 people showed up for the Twee event, attracting such large crowds that 4 people were arrested, including one of the fake Timmys. The contest was forced to migrate to the nearby Mercer playground, where a winner was crowned and the real Chalamet showed up to watch. The viral success of this copycat contest inspired its own copies, and were mostly centered on other famously hot men. There were 2 Paul Mescal contests, a Harry Styles contest, a Dev Patel one, and 2 for that bug-eyed chef guy who's always angry that he has to cook for people. But for me though, this all just seemed like another expression of the copy and paste slop culture that Hollywood has been force feeding us for the last decade and change. As Solar Sands recently put it, our culture is eating itself. Everything is a copy, because that's the only thing people are showing up for. 9 out of the 10 highest grossing films of the year were sequels, remakes or reimaginings. The only exception being YOLO, a Chinese comedy drama that you've probably never even heard of. Gladiator 2, pointless sequel. Dune 2, sequel to a remake. Inside Out 2, sequel for babies. And don't even get me started on Deadpool and Wolverine, aka Funko Pop the movie. A feature-length celebration of one studio absorbing the fetal corpse of another studio's IP library, made as one disgusting chimera mega merger. And then there's Wicked, maybe the most loved movie of the year. An adaptation of a musical that's an adaptation of a book, which is a reimagining of a movie that already has a prequel, sequel, and reimagining, and was already itself an adaptation of a book. And you know, I fucking loved it. Which is when I realized I can't really blame these studios for serving us reheated microwave-safe pig slop when I'm face deep in the trough myself. Eat up, piggies, because if you keep showing up, that's all they're ever gonna serve you. At least the losers who showed up to these look-alike contests were breathing some outside air in the company of other humans instead of complaining about sequels on Reddit or in a YouTube video. In November, the world chose to fuck shit up as the year's major themes were crystallized by a few moments of violence and victory. Everyone was so thirsty for blood that millions were willing to tune in to watch the internet's biggest dickhead beat the shit out of a convicted rapist. 60 million households tuned in for this, apparently, causing the stream to crash during pivotal moments of the old man pummeling. In scenes from 1780, peasants in Spain tossed mud at the king, angry over the government's failure to deal with the country's apocalyptic floods. One of many devastating floods this year that maybe we should be paying more attention to? There was that whole climate change thing that people were on about like 8 years ago. Maybe we should... No, wait! Stop the presses! Someone killed a notable squirrel in New York! The fate of Peanut, the glorified rat, briefly transfixed America when he was murdered by the cops. The extrajudicial killing of this illegal, insta-famous pet struck a nerve of Americans who connected this highly specific, isolated incident that has never happened before with the larger issue of government overreach. The plight of the pet even somehow made it to the presidential campaign as J.D. Vance pounced on the hot button issue.
On the way down here from Cincinnati, he was like, you know, is it really the case that the Democrats murdered the Elon Musk of squirrels? And I said, yeah, it sounds like, have you seen the videos of this squirrel?
Oh, and Donald Trump was elected president of the United States for the second time, which was an event that happened. An entirely unsurprising one, if you ask me, but that's because I live online, where he actually won the election several months earlier.
Check out this rap and let me know your honest thoughts.
I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible.
Go to the front.
The cultural supremacy that broadcast and print media enjoyed back in 2016, when Donald Trump first ran for president, has all but evaporated. 24-hour news coverage has been replaced by the infinite scroll. The think piece has been eclipsed by the hot take. Memes have supplanted the soundbite, and podcasts have pulverized the late-night interview into submission. Which is why I am not joking when I say the Costco guy's appearance on Jimmy Fallon is one of the most culturally critical moments of the year. AJ, Big Justice, and The Rizzler farted into Fallon's couch for an agonizing 7 minutes, as the newly minted internet famous collided with the institutional anti-Riz of a decade-famous hack.
Welcome to The Tonight Show. Thank you so much for being here.
You guys have taken over the internet, and now you've gone way beyond the internet.
We're 5 seconds in, and Fallon needs to immediately make it clear that the internet is on a lower rung of the cultural hierarchy.
Over the summer, you had one of the biggest songs, We Bring the Boom. That's right.
What we do.
We bring the boom! All right, yes. Bring the boom.
Fallon then showed them the evidence that the Costco guys had really made it big by reminding them that a bunch of theatre kid nobodies on SNL had done a parody of them.
This week on Saturday Night Live, they impersonated you on the show. Isn't that wild?
Unaware that the Costco guys have far eclipsed those dweebs who've been dressing as them. Clearly, Fallon was intimidated by the Costco guys. His constant pathetic attempts to mog them was rooted in a deep insecurity, stemming from the truth that he and they are not so different.
And now you've done, how many booms have you done, do you know?
Couple 100,000.
Couple 100,000. Yeah, 1,000.
AJ and Big Justice hold an uncomfortable mirror up to Fallon's makeup-caked face. Really, he is just like them, a forced smile for hire, shilling whichever product is sat on the sofa opposite him that day. They are all just a shallow cultural sideshow, lacking any kind of depth. Only the Rizzler shone out as a beacon of serene, authentic energy, like a tiny little Buddha statue, indifferent to the cultural decay around him. Today, late-night TV interviews are short, toothless, staged-managed segments that only exist to advertise larger cultural products that people might actually pay for. They have been completely destroyed by the podcast, which is, for better or worse, the dominant cultural enterprise in 2024. Throughout November, the Spit on Dick Girls podcast was comfortably one of the most listened to audio products in the Western world. From a viral street interview to a new media star in a matter of months. And yes, the podcast is cold horseshit, but that's not the point. This is wholesome grifting, where if you're a likable enough underdog, people just want to see you win. What it means to be famous now has totally changed, and the podcast is now the front page of culture. Of course, nothing exemplifies this better than the Donald Trump episode of the Joe Rogan Experience released at the tail end of October. Scoring 53 million views on YouTube alone, the 3-hour-long podcast was a rambling, sleep-inducing discussion between the two cultural heavyweights. In terms of entertainment value, it was easily eclipsed by the candidates' appearance on Theo Von, Flagrant, and Aiden Ross's stream. The Rogan appearance was just the finishing line, after a marathon of internet media appearances that made a Trump victory look certain to anyone who was watching. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's appearance on Call Her Daddy is the perfect case study in sucking ass. Appearing on a podcast that is normally about blowjobs and frat daddies, it was further evidence that the Dems weren't living in 2024. They blew 6 figures building a set in a Washington hotel room just to replicate Alex Cooper's real-life setup in LA. The Dems failed to secure their candidate an interview slot on Rogan, as she wouldn't travel to Texas and didn't want to commit to a full 3 hours, which was revealing. In 3 hours of unscripted chat, you can't hide who you are. The format is unforgiving, often boring, but it's authentic. And more than that, it's goddamn American. You can listen to a podcast on your 10-hour shift, in gridlock on the freeway, and while you're on the can.
Gosh, I wish I could talk to someone who's been in my shoes, you know? A black, South Asian woman running for president, preferably from the Bay Area.
The Harris campaign's Hail Mary was this self-congratulatory scripted appearance on SNL days before the election. A 40-year-old institution that no one cares about anymore. It's fake, it's bullshit, it's not fucking real. Modern audiences are sick of being spoken down to and having a finger wagged in their face. Millennials have aged out of cultural relevance. Woke culture is now just mom culture. It's as kitsch as a live, laugh, love ornament hanging above the kitchen sink. It is a relic of the 2010s. Anyone still waging the culture war from either side is a Japanese soldier still chilling in the backwoods of the Philippines. The culture war is over. 2014 to 2024, done and dusted, because in December, The class war began. In December, revolution was in the air as regimes fell and reputations faltered beyond repair. The first week was one of them where decades happen, which was a ball ache for me because I was trying to make this fucking video. But at least it forced Nothing Ever Happens bros to finally concede that maybe everything always happens after all. People had enough of getting fucked around and didn't care about the consequences. This guy revolted against a used car dealership's stingy return policy, deciding to return the car so hard they couldn't refuse. The viral suck job girl released her very own shitcoin, spitting on her audience by pulling out before they could reach satisfaction.
Woke up this morning, hype as can be. Can't wait to see what's under the tree.
Meanwhile, the Rizzler released this Christmas heater to the acclaim of one and, well, me. Honestly, this kid is either going to be John Cena levels of famous forever or dead by his own hand by age 18. But I gotta say, he's won me over. God bless you, little Riz. You'll go far. On December 4th, which happens to be my birthday, a masked man shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a Manhattan sidewalk in a targeted attack. The killer fled the scene, leaving behind a rucksack full of Monopoly money in Central Park. Later, it was revealed that he had inscribed "delay, deny, depose" on the bullet casings, echoing the tactics of insurers in their efforts to deny claims and increase profits. The internet reacted to the murder with unashamed celebration on TikTok, Twitter, and even in the comments of the company's Facebook post commemorating the victim. Obviously, cold-blooded murder is wrong. No person has the right to decide whether another person gets to live or die. Only an automatic claim-denying algorithm can do that. After a 6-day manhunt, authorities captured the killer at a McDonald's, almost exactly 286 miles from the crime scene. And oh my god, he was hot! When his name was revealed, internet sleuths immediately found his Twitter account and realized it was riddled with clues. His header was a cryptic triptych, including his own jacked bod, an x-ray of his back surgery, and the Pokemon Breloom, number 286 in the Pokedex. His account also featured exactly 286 tweets, a number that may or may not be a reference to denial code 286 used by insurance companies when appeal time limits for healthcare claims are not met. But Luigi wasn't just a Riddler, he was a reader, with hundreds of reviews attached to his Goodreads profile. There were multiple reviews for books about dealing with chronic back pain, and one for the Unabomber's Manifesto. If the madness of the case wasn't enough, the public hysteria that followed matched it. Women and gay dudes everywhere publicly thirsted for him. The left, the right, and the politically incoherent celebrated him as a folk hero. On hearing of his capture, the audience of The Daily Show reacted with audible disapproval.
Today, they did appear to catch that guy today at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's true. Look, I'm sorry, guys.
But it was hard to decipher which reactions were dark, ironic detachment and which were genuine support for vigilante vengeance wrought upon the insurance industry and moneyed elites in general. Either way, it looked like the internet loved Luigi, striking fear into the still beating hearts of healthcare CEOs everywhere. Insurance companies removed leadership pages and images from their websites. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield even reversed a policy change that would have limited anesthesia coverage for people undergoing surgeries. The Luigi Love-In even leaked into real life as a look-alike contest was held in the Cheeseballs Chalamet Park. And crowds of disaffected ravers danced to Luigi's mugshot. In less than a week, he had become a potent symbol of anti-establishment rage, a killer saint with a six-pack.
Like, he's cute, and people celebrating this. This is a sickness, honestly. It's so disappointing, but I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And up next, the other big news out of New York, Daniel Penny. A lot of people think he's a hero, and tonight he's not guilty. My take next.
while broadcast media and people with reputations to protect could only express disgust at this adoration, unable to take the internet celebrations seriously. But as a result, they couldn't ask the real questions that this moment demanded. Like, was he natty or nah?
That's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people.
The ballad of Luigi Mangione isn't over, and for me, it's the most fascinating story of the whole year, at least in terms of cultural gravity. It was like watching a thermostat burst as the previous era's measurements for acceptable discourse were suddenly irrelevant. It'll be interesting to see if these temperatures can remain as high as we enter 2025.
I declare martial law to protect the Free Republic of Korea from the threat of North Korean Communist forces.
Meanwhile, in the incel capital of the world, President and Supreme Gentleman Yoon Song-yeol attempted to preempt his imminent impeachment by declaring martial law at 10:30 p.m. Hoping, I imagine, that any opposition to his cheeky self-coup would be hogtied by being asleep or being too smashed on soju to do anything about it. This was the most high-profile and cinematic coup attempt of the year, and in a way, it had everything going for it. Yoon blamed North Korean influences within the country, attempted to suspend the free press, and got the military moving on Seoul's streets and into the National Assembly. Troops attempted to prevent representatives from being able to undo the president's declaration of martial law. Just before midnight, a special forces unit arrived, attempting to make sure no one could enter and remove officials that were already present. But opposition was immediate.
계엄 사령관이 되면
After surviving his stabbing in January, Lee Chae-myung was thrust into the spotlight again, live streaming his journey to the National Assembly building, as he and hundreds of other members arrived to Uno reverse card this self-coup. When Lee Chae-myung did arrive, he was forced to climb the fence. But this is what it takes if you need to manually reboot your country's democracy. With the whole world watching, the National Assembly managed to say the magic words and voted to reverse the declaration of martial law, provoking applause from the press gathered outside. Eventually, the special forces started their retreat as confidence in the coup was lost. A happy ending, where democracy and technology joined forces to resist a tyrannical and moronic self-coup. The immediate reaction of the National Assembly and hundreds of cameras streaming the events to the world made it impossible for President Yoon to control the narrative. In another era, where state TV is the only way anyone learns anything, it might have been possible. But a coup is really just smoke, mirrors, and a show of force. And if your show starts to look like a farce, you're fucked. I would give this coup a solid 4, because he did manage to get the military mobilized and he managed to declare martial law. But seeing as it was a self-coup and he already had that power to begin with, I'm going to have to give this a solid 2 instead. In 2025, let's coup better, guys. I believe in you. Luigi and President Yoon weren't the only ones making my life difficult in December, as a whole bunch of mad events were firing in my face like they were coming out of this flare-firing Gatling gun thing. In Georgia, street protests got awesome, as the people of Tbilisi gave us some of the most badass scenes of the whole year. This legend and thousands of others were pissed at the pro-Russian government for suspending negotiations to join the EU. This was also after that dodgy election in October. You know, this one. Speaking of elections, and I know we have been speaking of them, Romania became the first country in the world to annul a presidential election result due to foreign intervention via TikTok. Wow, that's fucking mental! Shame we don't have time to talk about it. Emmanuel Macron was smelling like month-old brie when his choice for Prime Minister fell to a vote of no confidence. Manny's position was starting to look untenable, but he reassured the French public by declaring, "I'm not fucking leaving on French TV! Come on, man, quit or do a coup or something. I've got a video to write." Justin Trudeau, too, teetered on the edge of the abyss as members of his own party urged him to quit after nearly 10 years running the great state of Canada. We done? Nope, not even close. Oh yeah, there was this femcel school shooter in Wisconsin. Let's just have one of those too. Hey, didn't you get the memo, hun? We're shooting CEOs now. Mysterious and massive drones flying overhead in New Jersey. Sure, why not? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a drone? Or is it a mass delusion amplified by our post-truth landscape where no one believes anything anymore and the only people who seem certain of anything are the ones making shit up? I don't even know nothing no more. Is the room spinning for you too? Why can I taste sound? Oh yeah, I nearly forgot. Syria is officially under new management after a decade of civil conflict and over 40 years of rule by a family of toothbrush-headed psychopaths. Yeah, this was quite big news. History happening before our eyes, actually. Rebels led by Abu Mohammed al-Jolani took advantage of Hezbollah's return to Lebanon and Assad's subsequently weakened regime, conducting a 12-day statue-toppling tour of Syria that started with a sunset in Aleppo and ended with a new dawn in Damascus. When the Mandem appeared on state TV, it was official. The House of al-Assad was finally a feature of the history books. Assad himself fled to Moscow, while the country he had tortured and imprisoned was jubilant. Even the usually apolitical Syrian SpongeBob was there to celebrate the fall of a tyrant. While there are still pressing questions about how this new Syria will be governed, and what its relationship will be with its neighbours and its still occupied territory, well, you know what, those are questions for 2025. December was a time for celebration and freedom, as those imprisoned by the regime were released. Live streams of palace lootings and compound invasion tours were short-lived, as Jolani's caretaker government sought to protect the institutions of the state and maintain stability. But before we finish on this story, and this year, I want to show you one last video. It's a short clip, one of an anonymous Syrian rebel exploring secret tunnels underneath a regime compound. This simple, otherwise unremarkable moment is important to me personally because he says exactly what I was thinking. When we watch the world through our phone screens, it can be easy to detach ourselves, to forget that there are humans on the other side of these images. This guy, whoever he is, doesn't share my language, religion, or nation, yet we're still bound by a common reference point of exploring the corridors of Black Mesa when we were children. He is my brother in arms, a man of culture, who also probably spends too much time on the computer. I think we can all relate to him. So how do you conclude a year like this? I'm not sure exactly. What I do know is that it's easy to be distraught about decay and disorder. But it's also futile to fall to your knees and cry about the things you cannot change. Sometimes it's better to tend your own garden. Sometimes it's better to laugh at the absurdity of tragedy rather than let grief overwhelm you. And sometimes chaos is better than stagnation because chaos is the agent of change. With more madness almost certainly ahead, let's prepare to make the most of it. So go well, get wise, and don't let the bastards grind you down. I'll see you in 2025.